Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I started to watch this. I haven't watched the entirety of what I'm about to show you. It's a Trump lackey who's... let me make sure I'm up first. It's a Trump lackey who comes on to defend Donald Trump. So just for anybody who doesn't know, a book is written by Michael Wolff called Fire and Fury, which essentially gets across this idea that Donald Trump is incompetent and unfit to serve, and that's not just the opinion of people looking at Donald Trump, it's also the opinion of people who are around Donald Trump. So Donald Trump has responded to this saying, essentially, he's a genius. he's like, hey, I know what the people in the book said, but I don't got them genius. I'm Donald Trump. This lackey, this boot-licking lackey, comes on CNN and shames himself, being this Boy Scout, this cheerleader for Donald Trump. But this cheerleader in a ridiculously comical way. It's not done with any hedge or anything else. He goes full retarded in the way that people say you should never go full retarded. But in this very specific case, he goes full shaming himself in order to epitomize Donald Trump as being the greatest man that's ever walked on the planet Earth, according to this guy. Let's take a listen to this. This is fucking hilarious to me. I sat there and laughed. I was laughing my way through it. It was like, okay. Let's do a video on this. Let's watch. Let's see. Oh, let's take a watch.
President Trump and the White House have been calling the Russia investigation a witch hunt and a nothing burger. But obviously, in this new Michael Wolff book, Fire and Fury, Bannon offered a different take on the Trump Tower meeting between Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, and these other officials, including a Russian lawyer. He called it treasonous and unpatriotic. And he said that, quote, the chance that Don Jr. did not walk these Jamos up to his father's office on the 26th floor is zero. Did President Trump meet with any of the so-called Jamos who were in that Trump Tower meeting?
Steve Bannon's eloquence in that description notwithstanding, it's tragic and unfortunate that Steve would make these grotesque comments so out.
By the way, I want you to look for something as you're watching this video. As he's talking to Jake Tapper is sitting right there in front of him, but oftentimes he's looking away. Particularly when he's saying the most outrageous lies. Like when he's it's like when he's shaming himself the most, he can't stand to look Tapper in the eye. It's fucking hilarious. Watch this is awesome.
Out of touch with reality and obviously so vindictive, and the whole White House staff is deeply disappointed in his comments, which were grotesque. And with respect to the Trump Tower meeting that he's talking about, he wasn't even there when this went down. So he's not really a remotely credible source on any of it. It reads like an angry, vindictive person spouting off to a highly discreditable author. The book is best understood as a work of very poorly written fiction. And I also will say that the author is a garbage author of a garbage book. And the tragic thing about this book, and there are many things about it that are unfortunate, but the portrayal of the president in the book is so contrary to reality, to the experience of those who work with him.
Notice he wasn't looking at him as he was saying that. It's like, I can't bring myself to look another human being in the eye when I'm lying in this way. Let's keep going.
My own experience, having spent the last 2 years with him, on the campaign, I had the chance to travel all across the country with the president on Trump Force One. It would be the president, me, Dan Scavino, Hope Hicks, a few other people, going from rally to rally to rally to rally. And I saw a man who was a political genius, somebody who we would be going down, landing in dissent, there'd be a breaking news development, and in 20 minutes, he would dictate 10 paragraphs of new material to address that event, and then deliver flawlessly in front of an audience of 10,000 people.
So you were at the campaign during that Trump Tower meeting, I believe, right, in the summer of 2016. Just to answer the question, because you were there and Steve Bannon was not, did any of those people from that meeting meet with President Trump? As Bannon says, the chance that he didn't, Don Jr. didn't walk these Jamos up to his father's office on the 26th floor is zero. Can you?
Now, to be fair to this guy, and to be fair to Donald Trump, Steve Bannon wasn't there. Not only was Steve Bannon not there, Steve Bannon is guessing in this. He's guessing. There's zero chance he would have done it, but Steve Bannon doesn't know. They don't have any additional information in regards to this particular meeting. They're just lavishing into things that Bannon says. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't give two shits about what Bannon says, but in this case, Jake Tapper's washing his body in the fact that Bannon said that this was treasonous, because they haven't had anything else over the course of this year to hang their hat on. So this little piece of news that this alt-right guy said that at some point was affiliated and close to Donald Trump, even though he wasn't there, they're raising this up as this kind of great thing that they found out. Nothing has changed. Nothing has fundamentally changed. Somebody that worked with Trump said something that they couldn't possibly know because they weren't there. And this is the thing that they're focusing on. It gets better. Let's keep going.
Just settle that for us. Did
let's see. Coming back.
President Trump meet with any of the people?
I have no knowledge of anything to do with that meeting.
Okay.
But what I can tell you unequivocally is that the allegations and insinuations in this book, which are a pure work of fiction, are nothing but a pile of trash through and through. Well, just to finish, Jake, because you know your network's been going 24/7 with all this salacious coverage, and I know that it brings a lot of you guys a lot of joy to trying to stick the knife in. But the reality is that page after page after page of the book is pure false. I see sections of the book where events I participated in are described, and I have firsthand knowledge that as they're described, they're completely and totally fraudulent.
Nobody at CNN is sticking knives in anybody. There are a lot of people in the White House quoted in the book. I don't know why.
I have to be honest. I agree with I agree with the guy who looks like he's stoned. They are sticking knives in Donald Trump. They have been washing themselves in this particular book and the things that this book is saying. The media is an organization that tries to make, it's a profit-making enterprise. Now, this is slightly weird because you don't necessarily want your truth to be monetized, but in this case, your truth is monetized. What they go for is not necessarily the things that are the best or the most necessary things for you to know. They go for things that put asses in seats. If so happen, the thing that put asses in seats is the thing that you yourself really need to know. It's a win-win. In other cases, not so much. The guy's not wrong for saying that Jake Tapper and CNN have been sticking knives in Donald Trump. Jake Tapper, one of the most aggravating things I would imagine for somebody who's dealing with the media, is a smug thing of, I have no idea what you're talking about. We're not sticking knives in anybody. There are some people in your organization that's been sticking knives in Donald Trump. With this practiced face that gets across this kind of, I have no clue what you're talking about. What do you mean sticking knives? We're just doing our jobs. They have been sticking knives in Trump, so fair enough. That doesn't necessarily mean that knives shouldn't have been stuck in Trump. I'm just saying, as somewhat of a flat fact, if you're looking at CNN's coverage, they have been sticking knives in Trump. As for a second point, it is also true that the people who are around Donald Trump were talking about Donald Trump. So, yeah, you can take shots at Jake Tapper for bringing the story up and kind of making this point like, yeah, I mean, come on. The guys who have been around Donald Trump were sticking knives in Donald Trump. This is not us. We're just repeating what the people in this book and the people who are around the president said. Again, sometimes you can have things where both are true. In this case, both are true. Let's keep going.
The quote that you're referring to is a quote from Steve Bannon.
Right, who was the president's senior strategist.
And I think that the president's statement on Steve settles once and for all the view about all of that. But
let's talk about that because I want to talk about that.
Let's dig in, though, to your comment about, well, he was also the president's chief strategist. So one of the other tragedies of this grotesque work of fiction is its portrayal of the president. The reality is the president is a political genius who won against a field of 17 incredibly talented people, who took down the Bush dynasty, who took down the Clinton dynasty, who took down the entire media complex with its 90% negative coverage, took down billions of dollars in special interest donations. And he did it all through the people and through his strategy and his vision.
So let's talk about this.
Insight and his experience.
Let's talk about this.
Yes, he took down all those dynasties. That's true. Bush, Clinton's, again, that's true. The president is a genius President's a fucking child. I can't believe it. Oh, president's a genius, my ass. That being said, the president is media savvy. I'll give him that much. The president did know how to crowd surf in order to get those people to vote for him. But ultimately, the crowd, or the president, had the one person in this 320 some odd million people in this country, the one person that he could beat. The Democrats wanted that person in that slot, and because it was her turn, even though the rest of the American public was dead set against it being her turn. And the president lucked up and won the presidency of the United States. But to be fair to him, yeah, he took down those dynasties. Yes, he took down those dynasties. But saying the president is a genius, not so much.
The president is now calling Bannon, quote, sloppy Steve, and he released a scathing statement this week saying in part, quote, Steve Bannon has nothing to do with me or my presidency. When he was fired, he not only lost his job, he lost his mind. You worked...
See, again, right there, I keep making this point that Donald Trump is his worst enemy. Why are you going to lie in this way? Like, Steve Bannon has nothing to do with me or my presidency. When he was fired, he not only lost his job, he lost his mind. Steve Bannon did have something to do with his presidency. I mean, you can make a case that it was Steve Bannon's, the brain trust of Donald Trump getting elected. Having this conversation saying, I never talked to the guy, or Michael Wolff, I never talked to the guy. Well, you did talk to the guy. Why lie to such a degree like that? This guy coming out shaming himself, talking about Donald Trump is the greatest thing that has ever walked the earth. Donald Trump is a genius. Donald Trump is a political maverick. Donald Trump can write 20 pages of notes in 20 minutes as he's landing in the airplane. Donald Trump. I watch the royal testicles each morning because I love Donald Trump. He's the greatest man alive. Love it. I mean, come on, dude. You're shaming yourself. I don't know what you're getting paid, but Jesus Christ. Nobody believes, even the people that voted for Donald Trump. There is no one in this country, aside from maybe a 3% that's in the margins, that believes that man is a genius at anything. Let alone believing he's some kind of political genius, that his grand scheme and his grand plan is the thing that got him into the White House. People hated Hillary Clinton. This is a wave year election, and I would agree that Donald Trump took down all those dynasties, so fair enough. But political genius, you're shaming yourself, man. That's too much. You should.
Hand in glove with Bannon at the White House and on the campaign. Is the president really arguing that Steve Bannon had nothing to do with him or his presidency? Because
I can only tell you my experience, which is that I joined the campaign in January of 16, before the first ballot was cast in the Iowa caucus.
Bannon helped you get that job. No?
Corey Lewandowski is the one who offered me the job in the Trump campaign. Mm-hmm. But just to finish,
Bannon wasn't helping you. Bannon didn't help you get that job on the campaign.
I think the person who probably helped me most get the job on the campaign was probably Corey. But the most important thing, because I've been working with Corey before I joined to try and help out with the campaign. Mm-hmm. But the most important thing to say about this is that the president's first speech that he gave, unfiltered, unscripted, that was Donald Trump. That's right. The same Donald Trump who for 30 years has talked about how America is getting ripped off on trade, on military deals, and everything else. It's the same Donald Trump who tapped into the pulse of millions and millions of Americans.
Right, but there's no presidency that is one person.
It's a phenomenon that was happening that you didn't see, a phenomenon that was happening that the rest of the political class didn't see. All these so-called political geniuses in Washington, whether it be at the big lobbying firms or
the only person who's called himself a genius in the last week is the president. But
which happens to be a true statement.
Okay.
It's self-made billionaire who revolutionized reality TV.
Self-made billionaire, my ass. Self-made billionaire, my ass. Show the tax returns. If you want me to believe you're a billionaire, show your tax returns. That's what I want to see. If you want to be the president of the United States, the people need to see that there are no financial conflicts of interest in your tax returns. If you don't show your tax returns, then I have no reason to believe that you're a billionaire. You lie constantly Why would I believe that particular lie? This guy with this tiny ego, that any little thing that pricks his ego, he has to fight back and retaliate or send some kind of lawsuit. Lies flagrantly and constantly, purely in order to upkeep his image. Is it possible that he's not a billionaire at all? He says this purely for this idea of image because he wants people to see him a particular way. And self-made my ass. His family gave him millions of dollars to start. Don't give me the shit about self-made. Donald Trump, if Donald Trump didn't do squat in his life and just left that money in the bank, Donald Trump would have around the same amount of money he has now. Man's failed constantly. Let's keep going. This is what I mean.
And I'm sure
how much does it cost to pay for this guy?
I'm happy that you said that, but
Jake, you can be you can be condescending.
I'm not being condescending. I'm trying to get to the point that Steve Bannon.
You can be condescending. That was a snide remark. You're sure he's watching and he's happy. Let me tell you something.
Why is that
your
snide?
network? You can be as condescending as you want. It's part of your MO. But listen, you can have 24/7.
I have no idea why you're attacking me.
Well, I'll explain to you.
My point is,
I'll tell you why I'm attacking you.
Steve Bannon,
Jake, you can have a 24/7.
Help push the president's travel ban. He helped pull out.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's one of the fake news items in the book.
Stephen,
I would happen to know better than you would, Jake, about how the travel ban was written. Steve Bannon didn't push the travel ban.
If you would let me,
Steve Bannon wasn't right.
If you let me ask this
No,
question.
because you get 24 hours of negative anti-Trump, hysterical coverage on this network that led in recent weeks to some spectacularly embarrassing false reporting.
I think the viewers right now can ascertain.
This faux outrage that this guy is expressing, and that's what it is, faux outrage. He's doing this to cover up the time in this way. The last thing that he wants to have a conversation on is the elements of this case. And he knows that Jake Tapper probably has information that can rip him apart. And the last thing he wants to do is consistently having to come up with one lie after the next, being on the defensive, making up these lies. It is far easier to try to gin up some phony outrage in order to attack Jake Tapper, in order to eat up the time frame, so you're not necessarily sitting there trying to explain why Donald Trump is such a failure and why all these people in this book talked about him in such horrific and bad ways. Why is the president of the United States a child? He doesn't want to answer that. He doesn't want to deal with these questions. The easiest way to do it is to gin up some outrage. I would imagine that this was probably planned in advance. Now, that being said, Jake Tapper was being a little, snooty, saying, I'm sure the president is happy. But you understand why he's saying that. Jake Tapper fully understands that this guy is kissing ass. He has his tongue firmly in the ass of Donald Trump. Talking about the man is a genius. Fucking Donald Trump's a genius. Nobody believes that. It's like this guy has his tongue firmly in Trump's ass. You better call me a genius. Yes, he's a genius. He's a genius. He's the greatest man alive. Oh man, let's let him do his outrage.
The viewers are entitled to have 3 months of the truth. Why don't you just give me 3 minutes to tell you the truth about Donald Trump that I know, and then all of our campaign staff know?
Because it's my show, and I don't want to do that. So here's my question.
No, but this isn't a courtroom, and I have a right to speak.
Settle down, calm down.
Jake,
I have a question for you about issues. Stephen Bannon, who the president says had nothing to do with his presidency. He was part of the president's travel ban. He was part of pulling out of the Paris climate deal. He was part of withdrawing from the TPP. He's part of border security. He's part of being tough on immigration.
So you want to go through the list?
No, I don't want to go through. But my point is it really the position of the Trump White House that Steve Bannon had nothing to do with the presidency? Or can you acknowledge the reality that he was a key player?
I think that what the point is that his role has been greatly exaggerated, whereas the president hasn't gotten the due that he deserves for the movement that he put together to tap into the kinds of people whose life concerns don't get a lot of attention on CNN. Not a lot of hours of coverage on this TV talking about the working class construction workers who've lost their jobs to foreign labor. There's not a lot of coverage on this TV about the people getting slaughtered in sanctuary cities. You don't do a lot of human interest stories about immigrant communities under siege from MS-13.
So he's partially right on this. Not the immigrant cities thing. This is the racist shit that Donald Trump and his people come up with. And people are being slaughtered in sanctuary cities. This is stuff that he's trying to use to justify the travel ban and the ICE raids. These people, these thugs, getting people who are living in the country and kicking them out the country, Donald Trump is trying to make this point that, well, it's only people who are violent and aggressive, and that's not true. It's fundamentally not true. That being said, the first part is perfectly true. CNN does not necessarily deal with the poverty and everything else that's in this country, that's entrenched in this country. The people who voted for Donald Trump, to some degree, were people who voted, or some of them voted for Obama. Why the sea change? You can't make the argument that all of these people are just racist and sexist and bigots and all this other stuff. There's something else. There's another component to this, that component being economics. They did not believe that the Democratic Party represented their interests. You had a lot of people who were part of the labor movement ended up voting for Trump. Now, when you look at the coverage and you look at the majority of the ads that were run by the Hillary Clinton campaign, the majority of those ads focused on Donald Trump. He's a maniac. He's horrible. He's going to eat your babies. He's going to kick your puppies. He's going to punch your mama in the eye, etc., etc., etc. He's going to be the worst person on earth. He's going to be goddamn Donald Trump. You can't put him in that office. Donald Trump may have said dog whistle stuff, but at the same token, he also brought up this thing of economics. We're going to bring back jobs. I'm going to fight for your jobs. And when Donald Trump took that office in this kind of showman way that really had no real effect in the real world, but actually had this kind of overt comic book significance of him standing and browbeating the companies that were moving jobs out of seas. So the one thing that you've never seen from Democrats is something like that. Like, I've never seen a Democrat take a company to task for moving out of seas or something to that effect. Now, I say this as this kind of comic book action because this is not going to have any effect. The reasons and the forces that cause companies to take jobs out of seas or automate those jobs, these things are somewhat economic forces. In the case of Democrats, not necessarily representing the interests of those people, meaning Hillary Clinton ran that campaign in the most tone-deaf way imaginable. You had a wave election where people were looking for something fundamentally different, and she didn't care. Not only did she not care, she used Donald Trump as a gun to the head of the American public and dared them to pull the trigger. And the American public, not liking to be tested in such a way, just like Brits, pull the trigger. The question becomes, why did those people make the decision to go for Trump? What was the thing that made those people go for Trump? And he has a point. What's the guy named Stephen Miller has a point on this one. CNN, these shiny people don't necessarily cover the pain that's in the public, nor do they interrogate the reason for that pain, or at the very least they don't interrogate that honestly. If you're talking about an issue of war, that's going to be on the side of the U.S. government for that war, regardless of what takes place. But when you get into this idea of poverty and wealth, income inequality, and those type of things, those are not things that are focused on from his network. Those were the people, I would argue, that ended up voting for Trump. Not all of them. Yes, you had the base that was somewhat racist and everything else, but I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the hard right. I'm talking about the middle ground of independents and even some Democrats that Trump was able to pull into his coalition. The first point, he's right. CNN doesn't talk about that. The other parts, bullshit.
He tapped into a reality that is happening in this country that's not covered on this network. And I know you think I'm interrupting you, but I think the American people deserve to have 2 or 3 minutes of the truth.
And we've let you, talk.
No, here's the truth. I travel with Donald Trump all across the country and the world. I would be with the president on a campaign plane with a rally in 20 minutes, and he would be able to
already made this point, Stephen.
He'd be able to come up with material.
Yeah,
you've
already said that. We let you say that at the top.
That's hilarious. He said, I think the American people need the truth about Donald Trump. I think they need the truth. I've traveled with him. I've been with him. I've traveled with him. And when I've traveled with him, he could come up with material in like 20 minutes. He could come up with it. You've said that. You've said that. I understand that you memorized it, and I understand that you were going to get here, and that was the thing that you really, really wanted to say. But you've already said that in the opening. Oh, that's embarrassing. Jake Tapper has had to tell him to calm down. One man telling another man to calm down. That's awesome.
According to the New York Times, Special Counsel Robert Mueller has in his possession an early draft of a letter that you helped write in May 2017 detailing reasons to fire FBI Director James Comey. According to the newspaper, the first line of the letter mentions the Russia investigation. Did you write a letter outlining reasons to fire Comey and list the Russia investigation? Is that true?
Here's the problem with what you're saying. The final draft of the letter, the one that was
I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the one that Comey has that mentions Russia.
If you want to have an answer to your question and not to get hysterical, then I'll answer it. The final draft of the letter has the same line about the fact that there is a Trump-Russia investigation that this has nothing to do with.
So it was just moved from the top to the bottom?
No. No, look at the letter. It's the beginning. The investigation is referenced in the beginning of the final letter that was released to point out about the fact that notwithstanding having been informed that there's no investigation, that the move that is happening is completely unrelated to that. So it was a disclaimer. It appeared in the final version of the letter that was made public.
I want to ask you, because you obviously are very offended by the notion that this book, Fire and Fury, paints a picture of President Trump. Trump is not mentally up to the job. On Saturday, President Trump put out a series of tweets trying to defend himself on this issue of fitness. And he said, quote, "Actually, throughout my life, my two greatest assets have been mental stability and being, like, really smart. Crooked Hillary Clinton also played these cards very hard and, as everyone knows, went down in flames. I went from very successful businessman to top TV star to president of the United States on my first try. I think that would qualify as not smart, but genius, and a very stable genius at that." Do you think tweets like that help or hurt the cause that the president is stable and up for the job?
Not only do I think they help it, but I think in the toxic environment that you've created here in CNN and cable news, which is a real crisis of legitimacy for your network, and we saw it, of course, with the extremely fake news you reported about the...
Wait a minute, he's going on the attack. He doesn't want to answer that question. He said, yes. God damn it, man. Get your tongue out of his ass. You have some of this stuff. If you want to seem legit, meaning if you want to seem like you're a sane human being, and if you want to seem like you are representing Trump, some of this stuff you have to actually be honest about. In no way, if they're testing your mental fitness, meaning if somebody wrote a book saying that you are not mentally up to the job of being president of the United States, of the choices and the ways to respond to that, writing hysterical tweets in which you claim, I am not only smart, I am a goddamn genius. Probably not the best way to go. Probably not the best way to go. He says like it hurt his pride. It's very clear that they hate this book. Like this book has just hit something, hit a core of something in Trump. I think part of it is all the coverage that these guys are putting onto it. They've been finding any and everything to hit Trump on with this Trump and Russia thing. So now they have a book and something else so they can have this kind of tabloid-like coverage of what's in the book itself to go after Trump. Let's keep going with this. All I'm saying is answering yes to that is not the right answer. The answer to that is no, I don't necessarily think that's the best way to go about it. But at the same token, the president has always been forthright and straight with the people, and this is the way the president is feeling about this. There are ways to deal with this without looking like your tongue is firmly entrenched in his ass cheeks. That's all I'm saying. Right now, you look like a maniac saying everything that Donald Trump does is great, including hysterical, manic tweets. Let's keep going.
Don Jr. and WikiLeaks story. There was a huge embarrassment for your network.
Stephen.
Just like the huge embarrassment you had when you got the Comey testimony wrong.
Stephen, I'm trying to get to the issue of the president's fitness, which a lot of people are questioning.
I'm getting to the issue of your fitness, but the president's tweets absolutely reaffirmed the plain-spoken truth. A self-made billionaire revolutionized reality TV and tapped into something magical that's happening in the hearts of this country.
A, we don't know he's a self-made billionaire because we haven't seen his taxes, so that's the first point. B, he didn't revolutionize reality TV. He just had a goddamn television show in which he fired half-been celebrities. That is not necessarily a revolution. Let's keep going. I mean, again, what is this guy being paid? I want to know what this guy's being paid. I want a manservant. I want this guy representing my interests. Granted, I would have to dial him down a little bit, but I want this guy out there with his tongue firmly in my ass cheeks, protecting my interests also. how much is this guy paid to do this? Because this is fucking amazing. I love this. Absolutely love it.
The people that you don't...
The president has approval rating in the 30s. I don't know what magical you're talking about.
The people that you don't connect with and understand, the people whose manufacturing jobs have left, who've been besieged by high-crime communities, and who've been affected by a policy of uncontrolled immigration, those voices, those experiences don't get covered on this network. That's why, to prove the point, I was booked to talk about the very issues I'm just describing, and you're not even asking about them because they're not interesting facts to you.
That's not true. I have plenty of questions on immigration. You've attempted to filibuster by talking about your flights.
No,
with the president.
I
want to ask you a question because
don't be condescending, Jake.
Stephen,
Jake,
the president and the White House.
The reason why I want to talk about
this is getting ridiculous. Tapper is right. He is filibustering his time. He doesn't want to have the conversation about this stuff. So he wants to bring up, you know, CNN's been discredited, you know, by this particular thing or this or that particular thing. You guys got this wrong or that wrong. CNN dig of those things wrong. And it's true. CNN did not give an account of how they got that stuff wrong. I've agreed with them that CNN has been sticking knives in Trump and finding ways to go after Trump continuously and persistently. So I agree with him on that point. Jake Tapper saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I can't do Jake Tapper's face. Yeah, I can't do his face. But I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you mean, sticking knives in Trump, etc., etc. But come on. Come on. When I'm perusing through CNN's catalog, it's one video after the next going after Trump and something that Trump did. Now, I am not saying that Trump doesn't deserve that level of scrutiny. He is the president of the United States, and he is freaking people out in that office because he does seem mentally unstable. Not saying he is. I'm just saying from the tonal perspective of other presidents, he is way off the fucking spectrum in regards to how presidents behave, and he is freaking people out in regards to his behavior. So just like the Russia thing, where Trump wants to be conciliatory towards Russia, which is a good thing, and the Democrats use that to go after him with, meaning essentially using something that he did himself, that in this case was good, to use as a political stick to hit him with. Well, now a book comes out, and the political stick they're hitting him with is he's not all that mentally together. And in response to hitting them with this, Donald Trump fires off a bunch of tweets that kind of get across that he's not all that mentally together. This guy gets on, and the last thing that this guy wants to talk about is this book, because some of the stuff in his book he knows is true. And he knows that the last thing he wants to do is try to defend Donald Trump in this way, meaning Jake Tapper would pick you apart, asking one question after the next. The network doesn't like you. You don't have the typical protections that some of these other people would have on the network, where they're, not going to push the envelope. Jake Tapper will go after you because he dislikes Donald Trump, or the very least that network is positioned against Donald Trump. So what do? If you're a Donald Trump bootlicker, and your goal is to get out there and shamelessly defend Trump and say Trump is the greatest thing in the world and Trump shits sunshine, what do you do if you need to make that case, but the guy who you're trying to make that case to is essentially asking you questions that are very unflattering? You filibuster. You try to use as much time as you possibly can so you don't have to answer those questions. Part of that means going on the attack, saying CNN was, screwed this up. CNN screwed that up. CNN got the digits wrong. CNN has a history of going after Donald Trump, etc., etc., etc. You're filibustering your time. You're filibustering your time. You need to explain that book, and you need to get across that Donald Trump is the greatest man that's ever walked this earth. But by the same token, you need to get it across while the other person across from you is saying that people around his circle saying the man that you're saying is the greatest man on earth is completely incompetent. He's filibustering in order to fill the gap. He doesn't want to have those conversations. It is uncomfortable to have those conversations. And yet, he's paid as a political tool to go out and defend his person. So, let's keep going. It's almost done.
The president
Jake,
of the White House.
The reason why I want to talk about the president's experiences, what I've seen with him traveling to meet dozens of foreign leaders, with his incredible work.
Okay, you're not answering the questions.
No,
I understand.
You have 24 hours a day of anti-Trump material, and you're not going to give 3 minutes for the American people to hear the real experience of Donald Trump.
There's one viewer that you care about right now, and you're being obsequious. You're being a factotum in order to please him, okay?
No.
Wow! 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 He said there is one viewer that you're trying to please and you're being completely obsequious. He's like, oh man. Wow, that's wow, Jake fucking Tapper. Wow. All right. Go ahead.
I think I've wasted enough of my viewers' time. Thank you, Stephen. As Republicans, lawmakers call for
holy shit. Holy shit, Jake Tapper. Wow. He said, you've wasted enough of my viewers' time, and turns and goes into his next story while the guy is still screaming, Jake! 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 I need 3 minutes to tell you about the Donald Trump that I know. Now, the funny part about this is, if you remember, when he went into that spiel before, I need 3 minutes to tell you about the Donald Trump that I know. And he starts off saying, or repeating the same thing that he said before. Donald Trump could be on the airplane and get a bit of news, and in like 20 minutes, he could have like 20 pages of new material. And he gives that to like flawlessly to 20,000 people. Yeah, dude, you seem like you have you're being completely obsequious to that one viewer. You have one person in this country who you want to make look good and who you want to get this kind of approval from. Fair enough. Fair enough. Just look, just some advice. There are times when you're going to defend somebody, and when you're defending that person, you need to be to some degree honest. Now, you can spin it in a particular way, but ultimately you need to be fundamentally honest with the things that there is no room to get around. So if Jake Tapper is asking you a question and you're saying Donald Trump is a genius, nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. The only person who's ever said Donald Trump was a genius was Donald Trump himself. And this is the same guy that say he has the largest crowds in the history of crowds at the inauguration. That was shameless. That was extremely shameless. That was fucking embarrassing. I can't believe that guy. I can't believe that guy. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. What is he being paid? He's not being paid enough. He's not being paid enough. The man is not being paid enough. That's amazing. I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, all right. Kashwari Kate Miller looks like such a zombie. His eyes are like his eyelids. He has odd eyelids, and now I'm not saying odd in a bad way, but it makes him look sleepy. So it makes it look like he's stoned. I was like, is this guy on something while he's doing this interview? It was like amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah. That's true. Bonnie Davis, many things about Trump may be true, but I do believe he genuinely cares about his country. Call me crazy. Yeah, I think you're crazy, Bonnie. I'm sorry. I think you're crazy. Yeah, Rodney Davis, crazy. Crazy. Yeah, I agree. Kashwari K, I think Trump cares about his country in the white nationalist post-World War II kind of care. Right, Kashwari, yeah. Dan is the dreamer. Bonnie Day, you're crazy. He cares about himself. That's it. He decided to run for the president of the United States because he thought it would be good for his brand, not because he thought he would win. So there's one of the stories that this woman wrote. I can't think of the name of the woman. I need to find the story or the article. Where she makes this point that Ivanka Trump, his wife, wept when he won. Like when news came in that Donald Trump had won the election, she cried openly. It wasn't because she was happy, it was the opposite. Because they think he's completely incapable of being in that office, and he's the last person that they believe should be running the country. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. The truth from my perspective, off topic, Jamal, but this is the first time I've had no notice you're doing a live chat. Also, my first instance of no notification on Door's channel. Censorship and stifling of the truth is real. Yeah, I've heard somebody else say that today too. Deanna's the dreamer. He had a year and has spent 45 million of our money golfing. Yeah, I've heard about that. Rodney Jackson, a chance by making corporate taxes permanent and middle class and lower class taxes not permanent. Yeah, Rodney Jackson. So they did that because they wanted to make it look like the people in the middle class and the lower class were actually getting money back. Those things aren't permanent. Ultimately, your taxes are going to go up. Many people's taxes are going to go up, while the richest taxes are enshrined. those things are enshrined in the law. Now, if you remember, when the Democrats, or when Bush was in office, Bush pushed through those ghastly Bush tax cuts and put a sunshine clause on those tax cuts. Obama got into office and made 80% of those tax cuts permanent. Now, it's for the most part, Republicans do something and Democrats enshrine it into law. 80% of those things. Those things were supposed to be ghastly. Democrats howled when Bush was putting those things through. And then the Democratic president comes in and makes those things law. They're howling now. They're howling now. Who's the next Democratic president that's going to enshrine those? Well, they're already enshrined in the law. You don't even need a Democratic president for it. Republicans are making the point, oh, well, you know, they'll make those tax cuts permanent for the middle class and the lower class at some point. But they don't really care about that. I mean, ultimately, the people who they care about is the ones who are paying them their money, who's giving them that investment. The plutocrats. One of the Republicans came out and said, my donor said if I don't get this done, don't call him back. It's just open bribery at that point. Just open bribery. Bob Ramirez, so Trump is a turd, but he seems to be able to keep his detractors spewing spittle in their convulsions. Wow, that's funny. That's funny. Filibuster, what was that? What was that? What was that? I missed that part. Bob Ramirez, he wants to grow his channel in 2018. Guess he's appealing to the TYT audience now. What? Well, here it is. Jamal has always been a Hillbot. I've always been a Hillbot. Okay. The amount of money Trump has spent on golf this year could have gone about halfway to providing education for our entire nation. That's a goddamn shame, ain't it? That is a goddamn shame. Because you're right. You're right. I made this point the other day. I drove past, I think it was like 3 or 4 homeless people as I went to the store the other day. And you think to yourself, the amount of money that Trump might have spent on golfing, the amount of money that Hillary Clinton got in that election, $1 billion. I mean, the amount of money that gets sloshing through our country and through our electoral system. That money could actually be going towards real things, but instead the money is purely going into this idea of advertisement in order to get somebody elected. Or for the matter, grease palms, meaning essentially giving an investment for later on access. Yeah, it's a shame. It's absolutely a shame. Even the, what, $80 billion that we spent on top of the $1 trillion a year that we spend in our military, this stuff is a shame, man. It really is. Roman Sorka. The whole Trump is crazy meme is being pulled out because they failed at everything else to have him removed from office. This will fail too. I agree with you, man. I agree with you. Trump and Russia. What was it? Trump and Russia. Trump and Nazis. Trump is sexist. Trump is a sexual abuser. Then we go back to Trump and Russia. And now we're at Trump is insane. Trump is insane. You know what I don't know about? I know dick about what the Democrats stand for. And this hashtag resistance, for the most part, is squarely, purely just against Trump. In no way does it tell me what the other party is. I suspect that's the point. They can't explain what they are in this case. So, I don't think he's a billionaire. Rodney Jackson, I don't think so either. And I don't understand why anybody would just take his word for it. Trump lies profusely. The man is a habitual liar. Not to mention, he cares about his image to this insane, almost, it's, you know, cartoon villain degree. So if you have somebody who lies profusely, if you have somebody who is extraordinarily sensitive about his image, would that person who already lies profusely lie about the amount of money in his bank? Would he lie about the way he evaluates his property and everything else? Would he lie about those things in order to make himself seem more extravagant than what he is? Yes. Yes, why not? Mind you, this is the same person that lied about the crowd size at the thing. The same person that lied about people celebrating after the towers went down. The guy lies continuously. Why would anyone believe that he's a billionaire without seeing his tax returns first? So, Space Cyber, he's definitely a billionaire. Unreal anti-Trump denial here. How do you know he's a billionaire? Space cyber. No, seriously, I'm being honest. How do you know he's a billionaire? On things that I think people are being unfair on, I usually just call those things and say I think people are being unfair on this. Even in this video, when the guy was, you know, when they were going back and forth, there were certain things where I actually agree with the guy on. So it's not, you know, I'm just outright biased against Donald Trump. My bias tends to be towards this humanist perspective, but I try to be honest or fair when I deal with the politics of the stuff. How do you know that Donald Trump is a billionaire? That's all I'm asking. Forbes magazine says Donald Trump is a billionaire. How does Forbes know? Has Forbes seen his tax returns? Was Forbes going purely about what Donald Trump is saying? And is what Forbes talking about an evaluation, or have they actually evaluated what Trump has in his possessions to equal up to $1 billion? I don't think those questions are unfair at all. Yeah, I don't think that's unfair at all. Just wanted to say keep up the good work. I finally made a live video. Prognosis. Fucking go ahead, Prognosis. Make your videos. Robert Morris, I see Trump as the ideal weapon for fighting the neo-Democrats. I expect a little more of him. Killing the TPP was a bonus. Bob, same here. Same here. Look, all of my expectations of Trump were bad. If he didn't necessarily breach those expectations, then, you know, good. But my expectations were bad. The only expectation I had of Donald Trump was killing the TPP. That was it. Everything else I assumed would be downhill, with one exception, that he'd be more conciliatory towards Russia. He may have wanted to start off doing this, but because of the way Democrats have attacked him on this, it hasn't necessarily allowed that to come to fruition. Any move that he makes towards Putin, for the most part, is seen as, oh, see, there's some connection between Trump and Russia. He's trying to not be a maniac towards Russia. He's trying to not be a maniac towards Russia. Clearly, there has to be some collusion there with him not being a maniac. Why isn't he being belligerent towards Vladimir Putin? Why is he being belligerent towards Putin? I mean, some of this stuff is insane. Some of the arguments that they use to go after the guy. My hope was that he wouldn't do anything too expansively bad. That was my hope. I looked at him as being somewhat of a weapon to club Democrats over the head with, and I still look at him that way. Meaning, having them occupy their time to the point where he can't get anything done, I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. I personally don't like the bullshit attacks. I don't like them at all. If you're going to go after somebody with substance. And it bugs the shit out of me that they can't do that because of their donors. That snarling plutocrat that came on TV, national television, that said if Democrats talk about class again, he's going to close his purse strings. Well, there's a reason why they don't have the conversation about class. When Tom Perez is sitting right beside Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders goes into this argument about the billionaires on people's backs, and that you got to break up the banks, and you got to fight the billionaire class, and all this other stuff. And Tom Perez, the best that Tom Perez can say is this is a false choice. I'm not going to say squat about the billionaires. I'm not going to say squat about anybody on their backs. I'm not going to open my mouth about class at all, because I depend on the money from these billionaires and these millionaires and these plutocrats. And if I talk that way, I am not going to get that money. So I, Tom Perez, am going to shut the fuck up about it. Keep my mouth shut and just scream about identity and my values. My issue with this party and the reformers, the people who think they can actually change the party in some way. My issue with this is I don't necessarily see where those changes would take place. Chuck Schumer is coming out saying that he's not for Medicare for all. That's a basic of a litmus test. Regardless of what you guys tell me about this kind of Unity Reform Commission or anything else, they don't have to accept that stuff. You don't even know when they're going to have the commission itself to vote on those things. If Tom Perez wanted to do something, Tom Perez can make those things into law himself. They don't have to vote on squat. What you're going to have is a situation where Democrats believe that they're going to take the House and there's a chance for them to take the Senate. And if they're able to take the House and take the Senate, meaning the public itself is willing to come back to the party. Party doesn't have to change. The public is willing to come back. Why do you believe that they're going to vote in your interests if the people are willing to come back to them without them making any adjustments, any changes? Now, it's possible they make those changes. I'm just saying your leverage goes down the more that they realize that people are such sheep that they can't look beyond this any election cycle, and that they immediately just run back to the other party when one party pisses them off, ending up with this ridiculous scenario of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, lurching from one terror and drama to the next without ever really getting anything done. Yeah. What about his values? You talking about Tom Perez? Nobody knows what the fuck Tom Perez's values are. It's like, shit, man. These guys talk about market-driven solutions to healthcare. Jeremy Stillman, we're still arguing whether Trump or Hillary is better. No, we're not. Both are tools and factions of the deep state. The real winner in the 2016 election. The people have won absolutely nothing. Jeremy Shillman, yes, but nobody's arguing about who's better or who's worse. That's not the debate. Yeah, that's not the debate. I totally disagree. Jamal is not a hillbot. Politics seems to be deranged ping pong game of evil between Democrats and Republicans. Both parties are corrupt. I don't think they think I was a hillbot. I have like 3 videos that I've just done on Hillary Clinton. There's no way. I think he's fucking around. Independent outside. He's joking. We'll be asleep if Clinton had one. Yeah, Bonnie. Agreed. Agreed. The left, you would have had a portion of the left that would have went to sleep. The media would not have been antagonistic. Everybody would have went to sleep. Their illusions would have been secure, and the collapse of this country would have continued. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. All right, guys. I'm not going to be too long on this one, so I am going to end this one. I just thought that video was hilarious. Like, I've seen this guy lick Trump's ass before. And so seeing him on with Jake Tapper is like, oh, dude, you're fucking annoying. Like, that's the funniest shit ever. Jake Tapper is like, no, you're doing this for one person. You're being obsequious to that one person, Donald Trump. He's happy at your performance. It's like, wow. I didn't know Jake Tapper had that thing in him. Independent outsider. Is there any news TV show that isn't in bed with these idiots? Real News Network is good. I like Real News Network. I like Real News Network. I really like them. I like Paul J the best. Pate is pretty decent also. Yeah, man, I like Real News Network. They do a pretty decent job. Alright, guys. I am going to end this. If you guys enjoy the content, feel free to, yeah, Cardinal. Yeah, agree, Cardinal. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon or Super Cash. Thanks, guys. No, they're on, just type in Real News Network on, YouTube. It'll show up. Yeah, it'll show up. And Shwari Kate, you're right. That's a good point about how many would have gone back to sleep if Hillary Clinton would have won. For me, Scott Walker made me see that Alec was running things. Shwari Kate, yeah, man, they would have went to sleep. They honestly would have went to sleep. All these people with this hashtag resistance and marches and all this other stuff, these people firmly believe that the world fell off a cliff when Donald Trump took office, not realizing and completely ignoring the fact that Donald Trump was just an extension of the prior president. That's it. They act like he's doing something fundamentally different. He is not. He is doing gross things in that office. True. He is murdering people abroad. That's true. He's kicking people out of the country. That's true. But the previous president was also doing those things. He might not have been doing them as gross, but he certainly broke records with the amount of people he kicked out the country. He certainly killed thousands of people with those drone strikes, expanding the behavior of what Bush was doing in that office. I understand Trump is worse. I get it. But Trump is worse only from the standpoint of degrees, meaning it's not that vast of a difference between the previous president and this president that's in office now. One has a better tone, that's true, but ultimately what this president is doing is just Republican politics. Republican politics just so happened to be gross. Whether that was Pence in that office, whether that was Ted Cruz in that office, most of them would have been doing similar, if not the same things. Even if you got Trump out that office, you put Pence in that office, who will be a more effective president. I mean, if Democrats are look, it depends on what Democrats want. If they want somebody who's incompetent out of that office and they want to get somebody who's better at that job, then you're going to get somebody who's better at their job. And I would guarantee you that Mike Pence will fit in like just a Lego into a slot. He's not going to have the issues that Trump had acclimated to that office. And I would wager that people in the House and the Senate, for the most part, already agree with the agenda that a Mike Pence will put through, whereas there's friction in the way they go about dealing with Donald Trump. So, yeah, agreed. If Hillary Clinton would have won, all of those people who were doing the hashtag resistance would have went to sleep. Not aware of the problems that are facing this country, not aware of the deaths that we're killing people abroad, not aware of the tax cuts that are being given to the wealthy, meaning Hillary Clinton was also going to give the tax cut to the rich when she got in office, in the same way that Obama enshrined 80% of those ghastly Bush tax cuts in the law. Pepsi and Coke. That's my point. These parties are not vastly different. And even with this change that's supposed to have taken place, with Donna Brazile seeing the light, all these lefties trying to rehabilitate Donna Brazile, and all of these lefties trying to get people sheepdog back into the Democratic Party, you've seen no change. You've seen no change at all. And the 15 million people are so willing to go back to that burning house just because they're scared of the other guys. Is the point of politics to get things done, or is the point of politics just politics? Meaning, do you need a vehicle to articulate what you yourself want to do? And is what you yourself want to do, meaning your group, your faction, is what you want to do somewhat vital to the country as a whole? And I'm saying this from the standpoint of the left. We're the ones that believe in progress. We're the ones that believe in getting rid of poverty and making sure people have a decent living and making sure people can go to hospital when they need it, or child care or health care when they need it. That's us. We're the ones who look at the economic collapse that's taking place in the country. We're the ones who are looking at the way the jobs are being bled out of the country, or the way automation is going to take over even more of those jobs. We're the one who takes it on as our philosophical responsibility to deal with and solve these particular issues. If the goal is not to deal with issues that involve the society, if that's the goal, then just bouncing and ping-ponging back from one party to the next is not going to cut it. You would need a vehicle to articulate your goals, and especially to the point where your goals are actually vitally important to the stability of the planet itself, to the ecosystem itself. It's fucking important. Ping-ponging back and forth is not going to do it. At some point, these people who are so into the dim enter crowd will have to have the capacity and the balls to say no. To say no. You're not getting our vote if you're not going to represent our interests. And we're not going to go with the status quo shit of ping-ponging back and forth. If the goal is to actually create a vehicle that's going to articulate your will and to do things that are actually vitally important, not for the sake of politics, but because those things need to be done to make a better country. If that's the case, then just voting for the random Democrat is not going to do it. Just randomly saying whatever Democrat is put up, I'm just going to vote for that Democrat because I don't want to deal with the Republican, is not going to do it. Being willing to let them fail if they're not representing your interests is the way to go about it. Those 15 million people are going to ping pong back and forth because they're terrified of Donald Trump. And in no way are those people ever going to get the country that they want. They're going to get a persistent status quo that gets shittier and shittier as Democrats move further and further to the right. Knowing and understanding that they're going to get a section of the electorate over and over and over again after they lose power. It's fucking ping pong. Nothing gets accomplished. At the very least, nothing gets accomplished until people are willing to say no. So, Garnome, MSNBC calling themselves resistance is absurd on its face. Agreed. Agreed. No, I agree with you regarding resistance. If anyone wants to know about resistance, take a look at the Polish and the French resistant movements of World War II. Right, don't take a look at these assholes that has hashtag resistance because Hillary Clinton lost the goddamn election. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Alright, I am going to end this for real. Guys, thank you for showing up. It's a Sunday. It was just kind of a random thing that I was looking at and I thought I'd show it. So, dim enter the Matrix again. Bob Romero said, dim enter the Matrix again. there's a question on whether Neo ever really made it out the Matrix, or if what's his name ever made it out the Matrix. It's possible there was a Matrix inside of a Matrix. I mean, after all, it's only a computer program. You could have multiple instances of the Matrix, meaning that the solution that the architect came up with was, well, we need to have these people to be able to make a choice. But even when they make a choice, the second choice that they get is also just another game space, meaning it's just another Matrix. That Matrix is fighting for Zion, whereas the other Matrix is the Matrix dealing with the real world, or this kind of imitation of the real world. The only reason Neo would have powers in the quote-unquote real world is if it wasn't a real world at all. What they thought of as Zion was just another simulation. Neo having powers is kind of kicked him out into this other system because he wasn't necessarily familiar with using his abilities in that particular Matrix. The point is, it is possible that they never made it out the Matrix. When, what's his name? When Morpheus looks up and he says, is this real? He understands he doesn't know. How does he know? You've gone through a game space where you finally won this particular game, but just because you won this game doesn't necessarily mean that this game means you're out of a Matrix. You could just be in another Matrix, a Matrix within a Matrix within a Matrix. This is just a computer program. You could have 100 instances of these things, provided you have the resource power, or the power to power all of these different reality frames. That is more of a sadder conclusion, I guess, to the Matrix. But I suspect it's more right. This was a good Sunday show. Thanks, Jamal. Thanks, chatters, for helping to bring up questions. Yes, sure, Kate. Agreed. Agreed. Simulation of a simulation inside of another simulation. Terry Hall. Yeah. Like at the end of the movie, when he looks up and says, is this real? Morpheus understands that some of the stuff that took place was bizarre. And you can go further. None of these people have bodies. I mean, the body is not physical mind reality, even though the people feel like their body is physical mind reality. Ultimately, they have a consciousness. That consciousness is plugged into the machine itself, and they have somewhat of a residual image that their body grows and applies a certain rule set to the bodies themselves. It's a reason why what's his name? Once he became Neo, he could look into the body, because for the most part, the body didn't exist. That movie's fascinating, man. The movie's badass. The movie is badass. Terry Hall, you can't find a job. What? He said somebody can't find a job. No one here is a simulation, I'm sure. Are you now? Are you now? I just transferred the consciousness into another program. Yeah, The Matrix is fascinating, man. It's a fucking fascinating film. Absolutely fascinating. I mean, I am eager and terrified to get to the point where we can put a device on the back of our neck that spoofs our brain signals. Meaning, instead of allowing that signal to go to the other parts of your body, that signal is redirected into some kind of computational device. Ultimately, the signals, everything that you experience, are just electrical signals. If we had the capacity in order to catch those signals before they left other parts of the body, or to interrupt those signals as they're going to the brain and back, you could spoof a person's reality. That person can feel like they're in a game system or moving around and everything else. You can give them any kind of body that they wished, all sorts of things, in odd and interesting ways where you can have the human consciousness interact with the game space. You can have multiple people interact with the game space. Ultimately, you're just spoofing electrical signals. Yeah, that shit's fucking fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Garnome, fuck that. I would never allow software or hardware to be connected to my nervous system. I feel you, but say for the moment you were in a different society, though. Like, say you were in a society where people weren't purely out for profit and people weren't interested in trying to control the things that you think and believe and all this other stuff. In that different society, it would be fucking amazing. In a society that's built purely on cash and you have people who are trying to hack into these systems of the brain and everything else, not so much. Not so much. So yeah, I agree, Gardner. I agree. But can't spoof a consciousness, else we are automatons. Andrew Ippen. No, what I mean is, right now, everything that you see, feel, hear, experience are the processes that are going on purely inside your brain. ultimately, when your eyes see something, when light reflects off something, when you hear something, when you smell something, when you taste or touch, those things are converted into electrical signals in your brain. You're seeing an entire world and everything else, but your brain is processing that image. Your brain is, you know, dark cave for all intents and purposes, even though it's giving you this full color, life-size environment. But it's important to understand all of that is taking place inside of your head. Taking away this idea that consciousness is the entire body and everything else. Just assume for the moment we're talking about physical matter reality and the properties of physical matter reality. All of those things are just electrical impulses in your head. You can put your brain in a jar and put electrical probes to it in order to mimic the senses, and you yourself would not know any difference in your reality. I'm just saying. Yeah, Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, similar to Ghost in the Shell, Bob. What do you find? Yeah. What do you know? Yeah, to be real. Yeah. And Andrew, to some degree, we are automatons. Do you remember what happened to Barrio and DS? DS? Oh, DS9. Well, you know, when they were, oh, yes, Guard yes. When they were, he had some kind of injury or something, and they started putting, like, electrical devices to make up for his brain or something like that, and they had this thing of, well, wait a minute, at which point does this person become not a person anymore? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. God damn, that's random, Cardinal. That's random. He's trying to test my geek card. Yeah. Alright, I'm going to kill this. I'm rambling on. Alright, guys. I appreciate you guys coming, and you guys have an awesome fucking Sunday. Have a good night, guys. Or have a good day, I should say.